Okay, so as you can see on the slide here, we're going to be talking about what are the key interior trends for 2025. So for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Anna Coburn. I'm the Senior CSM Manager for Europe here at House. So what that means is I manage our team of account managers across Europe. And I'm really excited to be chatting with Amanda Pollard today from the editorial team at House, all about trends. So hi, Amanda.
Hi, Anna. Thanks for the introduction. And I'm really excited to share these insights with you all today.
Great. And so we're going to be splitting our topic today into 3 sections. So first of all, we'll be discussing the design themes that have been cropping up in House research, as well as the recent design shows such as Decorex and the Surface Design Show. Then we'll be discussing information from our 2025 Kitchen Trends report. And towards the end of the session, we'll have time for a brief discussion. So what we'd love is for you to share your thoughts on any of the trends that we've highlighted by putting that into the chat. And I'd also like you to share if there's anything that you've seen as an emerging trend that we perhaps haven't mentioned. And we can have a short discussion about that towards the end. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing is, what key themes are emerging in interiors at the moment?
So, well, when we look at the trends, we actually identify one overarching umbrella trend, which encompasses them all. And this is maximalism. It's a real divergence from the more minimalist interiors that dominated for a number of years. So if you think about those calm grey walls, the monochromes, the Scandi lines, these trends are the opposite. Lots of colour, pattern and personality.
Okay, so it sounds like I should be painting over my grey wall then.
Well, no, I love a grey wall, so I'm leaving mine in place. But maybe introducing some of these micro trends under that maximalist umbrella. So the first area we're going to look at is pattern. And we have a quote here from Sasha Berger of Honeybee Interiors, who says she's mixing patterns in projects at the moment by using different materials. And in general, there's been a real focus on nostalgic patterns at the moment. And these are designs that take inspiration from the past, but of course with a modern twist. So at Decorex in October, for example, there were some beautiful wallpapers that reinterpreted classic designs from the past. There were chinoiserie patterns and traditional botanical prints, for instance. And one notable example was this maps range of fabrics and wallpapers by Lewis and Wood. And these featured a life-size print of an embroidered shawl that was given to Queen Victoria in the late 19th century.
That is so intricate. What is the pattern on that one?
It's actually a map of a place in Kashmir. And in fact, it was never worn by the Queen, as it was a policy at the time to only wear pieces from the UK.
Interesting. So have we seen any examples of these nostalgic patterns on House?
Yes, we have. And here is a good example where the designer has used a traditional pattern and teamed it with some bold colour to make it feel really contemporary. So this bathroom is designed by Willow and Burt Interiors, and there's some traditional patterned wallpaper hung behind a chest of drawers. And the colour combination is really striking, and it makes it feel modern, but still with a nod to the past.
Yes, and so are we seeing any other nostalgia type trends?
Well, in our 2024 Emerging Trends report, we spotted a rise in the number of searches on House for the terms 1960s and 1970s. So there's a leaning towards 20th century nostalgia as well. And where we're seeing this trend emerge, I think, is in designs that feature relief patterns.
Yes, so is that what we're seeing here in this sideboard, Amanda?
Yeah, this one is the Graham and Green Jetty sideboard, which we saw at Decorex. And it features a relief pattern carved into the wood, which gives it a real retro feel. And also at the Surface Design Show, there were more 3D relief patterns, and they were on wood, on tiles like these from Lux Pottery here, and even using rope like this surface from Panispol.
Yeah, that is really interesting. So where are we seeing more pattern?
So where else we're seeing more pattern is on patterned upholstery. And that has made a big comeback this year. And we saw it really emerging at Decorex in October. So the grey sofas that had been everywhere for so long had been replaced by armchairs and sofas upholstered in pretty patterned textiles. And in fact, searches for grey sofa on House decreased by a huge 44% last year. And here's an example from Decorex. It's a patterned velvet sofa from Sofas and Stuff.
I absolutely love that sofa personally. It's such a big change from plain upholstery. What is the next trend you've noticed?
So we're calling this one intentional clutter. And it's all about adding personality to your home by showing off all those quirky objects, the pictures, the souvenirs that bring character to the space. So rather than hiding them away and only displaying one or two key pieces, designers are bringing them all out on show. And books too are coming into their own. And in fact, the term bookshelf saw a rise of 82% in searches on House last year. And this quote here is from a pro on House, Beth Dadswell of Imperfect Interiors, who says that she's been asked recently to design joinery for a client's plate collection and a room for a client's vintage guitar collection.
I love this, but how does one execute this trend without it looking like a mess?
Yes, well, it's all about curating the items in an aesthetically pleasing way. You're adding warmth and personality to a home without cluttering it up. And here's a good example where a pro on House has managed to strike the right balance. It's a living room designed by Brooke Kopp Barton Interiors, where the books, the artwork, the treasured objects, they're all on display all around the room. And the designer has used quite an eclectic colour scheme, but there's a clear coherence to the shades used, and the furniture has a symmetry and balance. And so these elements allow the room to feel harmonious, even though it's full of stuff.
That's really clever and a really good example of how interior designers can help you get the bones of your room right so that you can add your own personal touches. And this does lead me really nicely onto talking about how House Pro tools can help designers present these type of ideas to clients.
Yeah, because I mean, a room like this with such creative use of colour and pattern could actually be tricky for a client to visualise before they see it, as they don't have that expert design eye. So specifying and presenting all of the products for the client to approve could be quite time consuming as well, and confusing for the customer. So Anna, could you please explain how House Pro features could help with this?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are three House Pro tools that spring to mind because they work in tandem with each other to make sourcing and specifying so much easier for designers and their clients. So let's start with the House Pro Clipper, which I'm sure many of you would be familiar with. This is a tool that allows you to quickly clip any product that you have online and save it into your product library. So it'll bring in all the information about that product, including the URL, the price, the specifications, a description, anything that you want to take, you can clip. And you can build up a bank of products that you use frequently in different projects or add new ones when you need to. And then with this product library, you can then add choices for your clients to a selections board, which is where the client can see everything at a glance and quickly accept or decline if you want to use that feature for each item. And then within the selections board, you can also save your mood boards, which can be made up of products from your product library as well. And this all makes it easier for the client to see everything at the same time in one place, to really envision how each specific product, paint color, fabric swatch, everything that goes into the project would fit into the overall scheme. And in fact, from a personal experience experience and a personal perspective, this would have made my experience of working with an interior designer a lot easier. So I remember being sent a product specification spreadsheet with lots of options depending on my budget, a separate mood board and a separate floor plan. And I found it quite confusing to have to keep swapping between 3 windows to see, you know, my 3D floor plan and everything at the same time. So with a portal like this, with the selections board, where everything is there at a glance, that would have been fantastic. So let's talk about colour now. What are we seeing here? Is the maximalist trend translating into colour schemes?
Yes. So colour in general is really having a moment everywhere in the home, including the bathroom.
And it looks from this picture that includes sinks.
Yes. The message is that sanitary ware does not have to be white. And this concrete basin here and vanity unit from Cast was on display at Decorex in October. And these come in a whopping 28 different colours. But of course, clients might take a little while to warm up to this. And in fact, in our 2024 bathroom trends report, this showed that white walls and vanity units were still popular, with nearly half of respondents, unsurprisingly. But for those who do go for colour, green and blue were the most likely shades that they would use. But however, we have definitely been seeing signs of this trend on house, including the bathroom on the right here, which was designed by interior designer Nikki Percival.
I absolutely love both of these. So what are the main colours that we're seeing in interiors in general?
So we're seeing warm tones, particularly reds, yellows and greens, with a little blue thrown in. The reds, they range from a deep burgundy to a pale plaster pink, with terracotta and mocha, similar to Pantone's colour of the year, Mocha Mousse, in the middle. And yellows, they're ranging from a light hay hue to a deeper ochre and mustard. And green in particular is really resonating with homeowners. On House last year, there was a rise in searches for green kitchens, green living rooms, green bathrooms, and green bathroom tiles.
A really important room in the house is, of course, the kitchen. It's a place where many households will spend a lot of time. And we've recently published the House Kitchen Trends Report for 2025, which we're going to discuss now.
Yeah, so first, just a little bit about the House Kitchen Trends study. It's a report that we release annually where we ask a number of homeowners a series of questions about their recent kitchen renovation. And these can range from questions about the type of renovation they carried out, what their budget was, and the type of pros they used for the job, as well as the type of features, colours and materials they chose, which is what we'll be talking about here.
Yes, and it gives a real insight into what clients are doing in their kitchen, as well as the factors that influence their decisions.
Yeah, and as we know, trends take a little while to pass down from design shows and designers to the client, which means these studies are useful for knowing at what stage of the trend homeowners are at. And so for designers, it gives a useful overview of the mindset of clients.
Okay, so what insights have we gleaned from the study?
Well, so overall, we can pick up from the data that homeowners want to add interest to their kitchens with touches of colour and texture. A notable trend is the choice of veined worktops. It seems that clients really love a marble look on their worktops. They also want to add a feature with their choice of splashback. And the majority of respondents opted for bold and larger format slab splashbacks. And in fact, many want them to extend all the way up to the wall cabinets or extractors, and a small amount took theirs all the way up to the ceiling. And then cabinets, homeowners are also using these to bring in character, and nearly a third chose differing colours for the upper and the lower kitchen cabinets, White was the most popular choice for wall cabinets by our survey respondents, followed by wood tones. But we're seeing green again, with 21% of respondents opting for green for their base cabinets.
So how about fixtures and fittings? Are brass cupboard handles still popular?
Yes, brass is still a metal that 15% of homeowners chose for their doorknobs in 2024, according to our survey. But the top spot is taken by brushed nickel. 25% of respondents opted for this finish for their cupboards and drawers.
And how about the more functional aspects of kitchens? So did the study show anything interesting there?
Yes, it looks like homeowners are really embracing technology in their kitchens. There was a small increase in the integration of certain tech features in 2024 versus 2023. And these included stereo systems, charging stations, and computers. But fridges, in particular, were a place where clients were introducing smart tech. Respondents said that they'd added touchscreen displays, temperature controls that target specific areas of the fridge, as well as water filter change alerts and remote ice maker controls.
Well, I don't know about you, Amanda, but I would love a fridge that
Same
did all that. Very high tech. Okay, and finally, let's talk about sustainability. So was that highlighted in the Kitchen Trends report?
Yes, there's a slow but steady rise in sustainable choices in kitchens. For example, non-toxic sustainable cabinet materials were more popular than the previous year, as were water-efficient features. And windows as well were a focus when it comes to sustainability, with more homeowners choosing energy-efficient models. And there was even a new question on the survey, which revealed that 3% of homeowners hired a certified or licensed eco-expert professional for their kitchen renovation.
That is all very positive news, I think. And it looks like interiors are full of character and warmth at the moment, which can only be a good thing. So thanks so much for this research, Amanda, and for kind of explaining all of that to us for the trends. So yeah, we've gone to the part now where we're just going to have a discussion about some of your comments. So you can add in anything you think about the trends we discussed, or maybe add in anything that you've noticed as a trend that we haven't discussed. Amanda, not to put you on the spot, it's okay if not, but we had a couple garden designers here who are asking if you know from your research if any of these trends are shown in garden design as well. Are they following the trend? Do you know anything about that?
Yes, garden design. Sustainability really is the big one in garden design at the moment, I think, from what we've been seeing. Definitely there's a trend towards more natural planting and things like that. Interesting that a lot of people are interested in the garden design trends, actually. Something to think about for next time.
Yeah, I was thinking that perhaps we can do a webinar for garden design. Since we could talk about that specifically.
Okay. And definitely we've been seeing a lot more colour in gardens, so more colourful planting rather than the sort of cool blues and purples and whites that were very popular for a long time. Now garden designers seem to be mixing and matching the colours. I think that's also part of the sustainability kind of wild planting kind of look, trying to attract as much wildlife as possible.
Yes, I've actually seen that in my own personal life. My mum is doing a lot of wild planting. And I think it's quite common that interior trends tend to kind of follow through into the garden, because especially when we're doing extensions, which is, a kitchen extension is one of our, I think, #1 projects, that then leads into having that indoor outdoor feel and that connection with the garden and having that seamless. So if we're going for warm colors, like, that nice warm green kitchen, continuing those warmer colours and wild planting into the garden is something that I think we do see, you know, having them coordinate in that way.
Yeah, it's definitely more of a thing now than it ever used to be, that you want to have that cohesion between the two spaces, indoor and outdoor.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and then I think we had a comment here from Sarah Goodall Huns. So just be wary of colour products in hard water areas. Discuss installing a water softener. Yes, I can see how that can be a problem. I've seen that on the trend before with black fixtures. And how the water can show up on that. So yeah, good point.
Really good point.
Yeah, good point there. We have a question here from Amy Logan. Can you add a link to the Kitchen Trends 2025 report to download?
Yeah, I can do that now in the chat if you'd like.
Yeah,
that's good. Do that now. Let me find it for you.
Also, Amanda, is the Kitchen Trends report, is that also in an article within the editorial section?
Yes, there is an article about that in the editorial section. Yeah, I can find that as well if you like. Let me find it.
Thanks, Amanda. Okay, guys, so does anyone have any other thoughts, comments? Do you like the trends? Do you not like the trends? What are your thoughts on trends in general? Because I know a lot of designers, you know, like to focus on timeless design. If you have any comments or thoughts, please pop them in here. And then
it'd be interesting to hear what you think about trends in general. Whether it's a thing that you focus on or anybody have any ideas, any thoughts?
Just give people a second to type it up.
I think there's a thing with trends, isn't there, where it's probably good to think about trends in a whole sort of cycle, looking at it from right at the beginning of the trend, knowing that it'll probably go on for a decade and it won't get caught on by the homeowners until quite late stage. So Mary Frey says, generally don't follow trends, depends on client and space. Yeah.
So Catherine said here that she's working with a client who's worried that her green living room scheme will be out of trend soon, which I think is really interesting. And I think it does depend on the client because, you know, earlier in the webinar, I talked about my experience with an interior designer. I hired an interior designer in, I think, 2022, and we did a living room design, and my living room is dark green. It is Lick Green number 4, if you know that paint color. And I absolutely love it. And for me, it was more focused on creating a really cozy, warm space. Like for me, when I go in the living room and I'm on the sofa, it feels like a hug, right? Because I have this like nice deep color. And I'm not concerned personally that if that will be in trend or out of trend. I don't know if that was a trend in 2022 either. So for me, it's because I absolutely love it. So yeah, it's just interesting on, you know, different clients' approach. So I think you're kind of spot on that it depends on the client themselves and what their main concern is. I'm seeing, like, as Amanda said, like those kind of warm tones. I'm really into seeing a lot of terracotta and those kind of pinky colors, which I'd really like to have in my bedroom. And I'm aware that I'm seeing a lot of that probably because it is a trend. So I think it's just worth checking that that is something that your client actually really loves and resonates with. But then I suppose as well, you know, it is really down to them. Let's see.
Yeah, and I think you're right, Catherine, that Catherine talking about a client who's worried that her client won't like her green living room scheme, and she's reassured her that if it's a colour that she loves, it doesn't matter, which is what you were saying, Anna, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Philip says we don't like to focus on trends and tend to stick with more timeless designs. So some clients have the money to be able to change with the trends, which is also fun. Yes, absolutely, for sure. And I think as well, what we talked about was micro trends earlier in the presentation. So if I go back to that, and it's like if they want to incorporate trends, we talked about perhaps not painting over necessarily your grey wall if that's too much for the client, or if they don't want to go for a wall color. How can they introduce like pattern in things like wallpaper or textured sideboards or furniture? Sofa, I know sofa can be quite an investment, but maybe like an armchair, to get these elements of color and warmth into it without having to do a huge overhaul, because something like a piece of furniture could probably be more interchangeable than an entire the entire scheme.
And yeah, I think Nikki Bamford Bowes here says it could be said that timeless design is a trend in itself, and I think you're right there, that there definitely are, over the last few years, people are much more interested in things that have longevity, and I think that's a lot to do with sustainable reasons, that they don't want to just throw something out. And yeah, so it's about sort of looking, I suppose, taking what you like about a trend, adding it in, but not going wholeheartedly with the trend just because it's a trend.
Yeah, like being conscious of it. Do I like this because it's trendy now, or do I really, really like it? Yeah, definitely. Oh, I've got quite a few long chats coming through here. Also, just a note on gardens again. So Sophia said that you said the main trend is environmental, and she's been promoting this not just because it's trendy, which is obviously a great thing, because that is something that we all need to be promoting and focusing on where we can. And then in turn, that does make it more popular with homeowners, and then I guess a trend that becomes more long term. Okay. Yes, looking forward to intentional clutter, a great way to display personal collections rather than sending them to be tucked away in the storage. Yeah, it's like such a world away from minimalism and Scandi design and, neat, perfect homes, which I personally love, but I also do love the intentional clutter too. So I completely agree with that.
I think that all always depends on the kind of client that you probably have. So if you've got a client that can be tidy and keep their clutter intentional, then it would work. But if they're sort of honest with themselves and think, I can't actually be that tidy, then probably just need those cupboards.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's definitely probably like reality is like a balance of the two, right? Because you can see this image here, like we have the objects out and we have the books, which are cause a lot of interest and are really nice to look at, but it's not overbearing. And then we still have the closed cabinetry underneath, where all of your ugly cables and things can go, and all of your other clutter that isn't so aesthetically pleasing. So it's like a balance of the two. It's a bit like with kitchens, like we saw sometimes with open shelving versus closed cabinets. And how much of that do you actually want to have in your home, and do you want to balance the two?
Yeah, and what we're seeing quite a lot of in kitchens is glass cabinets, especially with like a sort of reeded glass or something like that. So it's kind of a compromise between the two.
Yeah, totally. Georgiana has written a really interesting comment here. So she said, maybe the discussion about trends should be brought up at the beginning of the project. So I personally navigate towards a color scheme that feels natural for our clients. I find biophilic design and general scheme focused on natural sustainable elements will let our clients bring props of trendy objects that can easily be changed when we need a quick change. Yes, absolutely. I think that kind of echoes what we were talking about a little bit earlier, about things that are easier to replace or swap out than, ruining the entire scheme.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's also just a general sense that clients are fearful of color, and we see that in the trends report, right? Like, yes, we're seeing like colors emerge in kitchens, but one of the top choices is like white, I think it was, and followed by wood. So whilst trends are like the warm colors are on the rise rather, the default is what's safe. And I think, that's why when people do take that step to hire an interior designer, that's where you come in to kind of hold their hand through the process and say, trust me, this will look better. This will be more your personality rather than just something off the shelf or something they could go to anywhere for, rather than, hiring an interior designer, because you guys can make something special.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting with the green as well, that like a few years ago, that probably would have been blue, that colour that was most popular. And now sort of green is sort of come in, and they feel kind of safe with that colour. And then it'll be interesting to see in the next couple of years whether the reds and the yellows come into the kitchen trends report a little bit more.
Yeah. So Philippa has said that she thinks the presentation is really interesting, so I'm glad that you do. And you like the fact that you can lead with the new design trends and balance it out with what customers are searching for. So it's good to know there's a time lag between customers jumping on trends. So yeah, it's really good to see that, and I think it's really useful as well. Janet was saying, I do property staging and tend to use lots of neutrals and have to bring in some bright sofas, which can really add a pop of colour, as most of the rooms have neutral white decor. So the colour I can add in brings it to life. Definitely. Exactly. I have a yellow sofa, which I absolutely adore. And I love the contrast. It's kind of a contrast, but it's a contrast, but a match, because it's still warm toned, like my warm green. And I could have easily have gone for like maybe a navy or a neutral in that space, but having that color with the walls, it just really adds to that kind of vibe of feeling really cozy and warm, and it really brings it to life. Yeah, Charlotte, the presentation will be available afterwards, so I believe this will be sent to you as a recording, so no worries that you had to join late. And yes, Janet has said that using the wood with the green really softens the look. Yes, because I think it could, you're so right, because looking at this image right now, it could look really clinical, even because we've got the dark kind of bar stools. So even with that green and the white, even though you've added the green in, it's that wood that does bring the warmth in and makes it just feel,
and it gives it again that biophilic look, doesn't it? Sort of natural textures.
Yeah, totally. Great, guys. Well, that's a really nice discussion. So thank you for your comments. I don't think we've got any more coming in. But yeah, thank you so much for your feedback and for your attention. And I'm glad that you found this useful. And we will see what we can do when it comes to incorporating more garden trends and insight into that feedback as well. All right, guys, well, have a lovely rest of your day. Remember to check out the events page that my colleague Naya's put in the chat, so you can see what is coming up next. And hopefully I can see some of you in person at the London Academy in March. So yeah, it'd be great. Thank you, everyone, for your attention today. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.